This story takes place in Washington County, Oregon, about 15 minutes outside of Portland. If anyone is interested in exploring these locations talked about, contact me and I'll give you directions. This story is about the scariest encounter with another person I've ever had. The events took place between February 2014 and July 2014. Near my house, there is a long stretch of road in an area called Helvetia. This road is called Dick Road. The area is notorious for kids going out there and stealing the road sign. This road is intersected by a train trestle. The train trestle is known as the Holcomb Creek Train Trestle. It was originally built between 1905 and 1907. The exact date has been lost to time. During its lifetime, there has been a string of suicides off the bridge. I believe the most recent one was in the 1970s. Because of this, the area is supposedly haunted with the ghosts of all those that have died there. This story isn't about ghosts, don't worry. I'm just setting the scene. Now, almost every time I go to this trestle, fog is always settled in the area, giving it a very ominous look. The train trestle itself is still occasionally used to bring lumber from the mountains into Portland. If you've ever seen the TV show Axemen, it's the logs that those guys cut down. On its way into Portland, the train tracks traveled into an old tunnel called the Cornelius Pass Tunnel. This tunnel was built in 1947 and is covered with graffiti all the way through. The exact length is unknown, but I've walked through it and it takes roughly 15 to 20 minutes to walk through. It's also very narrow, so if a train comes, you're dead. Luckily, most trains only use the tracks about once a week and usually very late at night. This tunnel is located not far from where a kid named Cryan Hormon went missing back in 2010. The tunnel is about half a mile from the nearest main road, and it is in a very desolate area. Anyhow, back to Dick Road. I first went to Dick Road in February of 2014 with my friend Austin. We went, obviously, because of the creepy history around the bridge. As we arrived, we banked over the hill traveling north. It was around 11 p.m., and as we slowly drove towards the bridge, my friend pointed out that there was a noose hanging from the bridge. We laughed it off, thinking that some kids just tied the noose to the bridge. We drove down to the end of the road to see where it led. Nowhere in particular. We turned back and drove back towards the bridge. We had been gone for about 15 minutes. My friend Austin told me to stop, so I stopped the car, and that's when we noticed the noose was gone. Now, if you look at the area, you can see that it would be hard to climb up there and untie a noose and be gone without a trace in around 15 minutes. Needless to say, we left pretty quickly. I returned to the area about 2.5 weeks later with my best friend Matt. We were both in our cars. Matt had 5 people in his car, including him, and I had 3, including me in mine. It was about midnight and we drove to Dick Road. We parked facing the bridge. I parked my car around 50 feet behind Matt. I grabbed my flashlight from my glove box and began to walk towards his car in the night. Roughly halfway between our cars, I heard a female laugh. My first thought was that it was Matt's girlfriend laughing. I took a few more steps and then I realized the laugh was an echo. That means it was coming from a distance. I turned towards the sound of the laughter and raised my flashlight, shining it in that direction. There was an open field that was probably 100 feet long. On the other side is a dark forest. My light illuminated a silhouette of a person, being encircled by 2 smaller silhouettes. I immediately panicked and ran to Matt's car, banging on his window to get him out. All 8 of us in total sat and watched these silhouetted people stand and do their weird stuff for probably a full minute. Then we all bailed the hell out and didn't return for a long time. Before this instance, my friend Matt said that he once saw a man in a trench coat walking across the tracks on a late night a few months ago. And he had heard stories from his friend about the same man walking up to the back of their cars and looking at them through the back window. The man was described as about 6 feet tall, wearing a black trench coat which was always buttoned shut. He wore dirty blue jeans, boots, and a dark ball cap. His face was concealed by an abnormally large beard, but he was easily recognizable by having the 1,000-yard stare that you see in war pictures. My encounter with this man happened on July 3rd of 2014. I only remember this date because it has been the scariest moment of my life thus far. I had just returned from visiting family in New York that afternoon. It was around 8 p.m. and I texted Matt, asking for him to hang out. We met up at like 9 p.m. and drove around. By 9:45, we wound up at a McDonald's near Hall Street in Beaverton, Oregon. We ate our food and talked about my trip to New York City. I texted my friend Ray to see if he wants to hang out. My friend Ray at the time worked as an apprentice welder in Portland. Ray is your stereotypical Portlander, covered in tattoos, gauged ears, and face piercings. He really taught me not to judge a book by its cover. Anyhow, Ray said he'd be down to hang out once he got off work. We met him at a Max stop not far from where we were. The Max is like our version of the Metro or the subway. We got Ray and the three of us drove around when my friend Matt said, "Hey, let's drive to Dick Road and see if anyone is there. I'm in favor and we drive out that way." Upon our arrival around 11:45, we see the train driving across the bridge. Now this is a rare occurrence as the tracks are used like once every other week during the night. My friend Ray says, "I've got an idea. Race the train to the tunnel stop and Matt and I will hop on and ride the train through the tunnel. Then you can meet us on the other side." Being dumbass 17-year-olds, we all agree to it. We drive towards the tunnel and beat the train there. We turn all the lights off because 40 feet on either side of train tracks is considered private property of the railroad. I wasn't about to get charged with trespassing while waiting to ship off to boot camp. Matt and Ray get out and hide near the side of the tracks. The train slowly creeps by and they start chasing after it. I pull into the train tracks and take my flashlight from my glove box and shine it out the passenger window. I'm trying to illuminate the back of the train so they see it as they chase after it. Once I realize they aren't going to catch it, I say screw it and put my flashlight away. I drove across the tracks and performed a 12-point turn on this narrow road, then went back across the tracks. The tunnel is now on the driver's side. I see Matt and Ray walking in the darkness towards my car. They were a good 200 feet away, so they were gonna be a minute. As I sit in the dark, my car is idling and my running lights are on. Link's 234 is playing on the radio from my iPhone. I start getting a funny feeling that I'm being watched. I look in my rearview mirror and there he is, the man with the 1,000-yard stare. I immediately froze and chills ran down my entire body. I was locked in eye contact with this mystery man that I had only heard stories about. The glow of my brake lights gave his eyes a haunting red gloom which still sticks with me to this day. I hear someone yell and the man blinks at me, turns and walks off. I'm still in shock over what happened. After a few seconds, I snap out of it and turn to see Matt and Ray talking to this man. Moments later, they both run full speed to my car and tell me to leave. As we drove off, all I could see was the mystery man's 1,000-yard stare illuminated by the moonlight. My friends said that the man told them that they need to leave and started reaching into his trench coat, and they saw the butt of a revolver appearing. I've never seen either of these two guys as scared as they were in my entire life. I've never returned to that area after this event. My friends will also seldom speak about this event, even when we tell the story to others. They usually refuse to comment on what the man said to them. So I had just gotten out of a pretty significant relationship with someone of 4 years, nearly engaged and moving in together, etc., when things fell apart. I took a good amount of time to be on my own and get my crap together again, when my friends began encouraging me to get back out there. Needless to say, I really wasn't wanting anything at that point, nor looking for anything. But they insisted that I at least just go out on a few casual dates for practice, just to kind of get my skills back up for when I was ready. I think they were honestly just worried because I had become quite a hermit. So I matched with this girl who's home from college for the summer. She's a little out of the way from me, but was eager to meet, seemed really interested, was even willing to come to my area, and so on. I really wasn't all that interested, to be truthful, but my friends again encouraged this. Practice, whatever that means. A date doesn't mean commitment. Whatever. I want to be very clear though that I was extremely honest and explicit with her that I was not looking for anything serious or anything really at all. I was very forthcoming that I had gotten out of something serious and I was just kind of encouraged to explore. She persisted and still wanted to meet, so we agreed to a casual lunch in a sports bar that week. I get there and she was already waiting for me. I was a bit put off by how much different she looked than her pictures. Not trying to sound shallow or anything, but her pics from Tinder easily had to be at least 5 years old, which I verified based on tattoos she had in person versus ones she didn't in pics. So I was a bit thrown off by that. I wasn't the least bit attracted to her, but I was there to just have new experiences anyway, right? I felt so bad, because the entire time she seemed so incredibly shy and awkward. I even noticed her hand shaking when she reached for a glass, which I found endearing, honestly. So I did my best to get her talking and try to help her feel more relaxed. I asked her questions and chatted about things I figured you chat about on dates. Where she grew up, music she's into, school she goes to, her major, etc. All to which I literally received one-word answers. It went on like this for about an hour, and she was just not working with me at all. But I tried to keep room in my heart, because it was clear she was feeling anxious, and I understand that on a personal level. Then she pulls out this book and says, "I got this for you." I responded very grateful, thanking her and inquiring what it was about. Because hey, if someone wants to share a good read with me, I'm all for that. She looks at me funny and says in a very sudden but odd tone, "You're kidding, right?" I'm very confused and just kind of look at her like, "What do you mean?" And she says, "This is your favorite book. You told me this was your favorite book." To which I said, "No, I have never even heard of this before." So we concluded that she ultimately got me confused with someone else she must have been chatting, which I honestly found hilarious. She was embarrassed, but I made light of it and said I found it funny because I get it. That's Tinder culture, I guess. So as we finished lunch, and I'm still receiving one-word answers despite our funny moment, I kind of become a bit suggestive that we should conclude our date by saying I had to get back to feed my animals and do some laundry. But she became very adamant on spending more time and asked if we could do something else. I was genuinely trying to be a decent person, so I agreed, and we found a nearby park to walk. And that's where stuff gets weird. We sat on a park bench, mind you, it's broad daylight. There's kids playing basketball nearby, folks jogging past. I start trying to make conversation yet again, but still get the one-word answers. Then out of seemingly nowhere without any warning whatsoever, she proceeds to just kiss me really aggressively, tongue and everything. I was honestly just so shocked I stood there frozen, not knowing what the hell to do. I had this timid, shy woman who's really not made much conversation with me at all, who was so nervous she was visibly shaking, just turned into a freaking bear mauling my face in like half a second. My head was spinning with confusion and anxiety, and I swear it felt like it lasted forever and I just prayed for it to stop. I was so put off and honestly a bit afraid to do or say anything. Like, what do you even do in that situation? I was just hoping she'd pick up on my very obvious body language, that I wasn't reciprocating anything at all. I was completely unprepared for a situation like this. Then some really nasty guy walks by, gawking and catcalling, and literally begins propositioning us into a three-way. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? I need to get out of here. I was 1,000 different types of uncomfortable. I end up managing to ward him off after telling him very politely no more than several times, all the while she's just laughing. And I'm thinking, who even are you? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde over here, what the hell? So he leaves, and I'm insisting now that I need to leave and go home. She seems to ignore what I'm saying and gets very close to my face again and says, "Did you like that? Do you think I'm sexy? Do you want me?" When I tell you I was so damn nervous, I'm not kidding. I was like, I really need to get home. And she was like, "Can I come?" She literally tried to persuade me to let her come back to my place with me, and I had to say no more than 3 times. So finally I'm home and frankly just kind of shaken up. I hadn't really done the dating thing in quite a long time, but that felt very abnormal. She then texts me after she gets home and asks me out on a second date, and I was very kind despite being made incredibly uncomfortable, and I told her I thought she was a very cool chick and I had a nice time, which was a big lie, but that I did not feel anything there and reminded her I wasn't looking for anything. She then bombed me a bunch of crazy stuff, saying how she didn't understand and was so confused, that she thought I was so into her and that things went great. I did not respond to any of these because now she's continuing to cross my boundaries. I said what I needed to say and I thought I was being decent by at least being honest. So the text continued and I figured they're going to eventually stop because it was a first date. How can someone be so upset over someone not reciprocating on a first date? They did not stop. By the text, you would have thought we just ended a 2-year relationship. Then she began calling, at which point I had to block her number. So nightmare Tinder girl, please. For the love of everything, let's never ever meet again. I am a college student in Southern California, and I just had this happen just this week. I went to the Target in a town that is like 15 minutes from my college during my long gap between classes on Tuesday. Right after I went to the bathroom, I met eyes with some random guy, and I noticed that he kept circling me or purposefully following me around the store. He tried to say something under his breath the 2 times he passed right next to me, before I called my partner to pretend to be busy so maybe he would leave me alone. He didn't stop following me around Target. He even acted like he was shopping and had his phone out. It was obvious he wasn't actually shopping. When I looked at the women's clothes, he vaguely tried to act like he was shopping in the women's section too. When I hadn't seen him for a bit, I ditched my cart, sorry Target employees, and hightailed it out of the store. He followed me out of Target too. I looked for the Target security guard on my way out of the store, but there wasn't one. When I exited, I waited to let him pass me and he pretended to go to other stores, but kept looking back at me. I ducked behind some cars to make sure he didn't see which car I got into to follow me more. I also freaked out because I feel like whenever there was a Target employee for me to try to get to help me, he would cut me off and talk to them. It was super creepy and I'm pretty freaked out. Please keep your wits about you.